Welcome to the Leaders in Payments podcast, where we talk to C-level leaders from across the payments landscape. We'll be discussing the products and services that impact the payment space today, as well as trends and predictions for the future of payments. We will also hear stories from our guests about their journeys to the top.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Leaders in Payments podcast. I'm your host, Greg Myers, and today's special guest is Pat Napoli at Appressa. So, Pat, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's dive right in. If you don't mind, tell our audience a little bit about yourself, maybe where you're from, where you grew up, where you went to school, a few things like that.
Great. So I'm born and bred in New Jersey. I went to school in New England, was a high school teacher for a couple of years at my alma mater, St. Benedict's Prep in Newark, New Jersey. Shout out to St. Benedict's Prep. I taught history and algebra, coached a bunch of sports. Then I went back to school and I started my career at MBNA. So I moved a bunch with MBNA. My family and I moved. We were in Baltimore, Madrid, Spain, Wilmington on a couple different occasions. So we've actually settled back in New Jersey. So I'm talking to you from the Jersey Shore today.
Okay, great. Well, let's talk about the company Appressa. So tell the audience what Appressa does.
So Appressa is, simply put, Appressa is a network. Our goal, and my partner, Chris Mettler, and I, when we first started talking about this idea, we really talked about inclusivity. And Appressa takes declines from prime banks. We're focused on credit cards now, but this is good for all products. Takes a credit card declines from prime banks and routes them to, when we met with the CFPB, they called them adult supervised, near prime and subprime banks. So there's a handful in the States, and we're really focused on helping people improve their credit. It's about inclusivity. And if you look at the numbers, it's an important mission that we believe we're on, not just because, listen, when I finished school, I was subprime, but really because there's almost 145 million Americans with a near prime or subprime credit score. And last year, there were 70 million credit card declines. So we think our network can help people when they're declined by a prime bank find a place to rehab their credit and get back into the credit cycle.
Okay, so let's play the scenario. I'm a consumer. I go to a bank website. I apply for a credit card and I'm declined. So today, that might be the end of your journey, right?
It is.
And so you're saying you guys have now built rails where you can take that individual and give them other offers by routing their information to these other banks.
Correct. So either a proprietary or a co-brand credit card. So you're applying at Bank A, and Bank A, which is a prime bank, probably located in Delaware. Today, probably you get an adverse action letter. Tomorrow, Appressa is able to, with our strategic partnership with Prove, we can talk about that later, send your information to a near prime, subprime bank. There's only a handful. And they can pre-qual you and get you a card that helps you rehab your credit. And look, in today's world, approval rates are not going up. They've dropped pretty significantly in the last 18 months. So we really feel like the time has come for Appressa to help people get back and get something to help them rehab their credit score. Because today, if you're declined for a credit card application, your FICO score goes down, which is a double whammy. You're declined and your FICO goes down.
Okay. So where's the company sort of on the development? Are the rails built or in development? Kind of give us an update there.
Yeah. So my partner, Chris Mettler, he's a serial entrepreneur. He's had 2 successful exits so far. He owns 5 or 6 affiliates or aggregators, whatever language people kind of use. So Compare Credit, RateQuote, businessloans.com. Chris and I have pretty much built the tech. It's 80% complete. We spent a lot of time networking, socializing with the near prime, subprime banks and with the prime banks and also with the co-brands and the network. So we're out there and a lot of people have really gotten their heads around, hey, let's do this. We're pretty close. We think we're going to have at least 2 prime banks signed this year. And we think we'll be in market probably first quarter with applications actually flowing down to subprime banks. So there's only a few, right? You have Concora, Atlanticus, Mercury, Avant, and where I used to work, Credit One, which is Credit One's by far the biggest near prime, subprime bank in the U.S. They're definitely the largest, and because they've been at it the longest. And all these banks, as I said before, are well run, highly regulated, and it's a really a great place for help people to rehab their credit.
Okay, and you mentioned Prove, so maybe talk about that partnership.
Yeah, so it really is. Prove's an amazing company. They are the leaders in identity verification for the credit card industry. I'll just talk about their U.S. business, although they are international. what they're able to do is improve the onboarding for a customer by almost 80%. So they really speed that up. And they have a large group of data sources where they're able to verify information for a customer, make it easier to onboard the customer, as well as reduce fraud in the back end. So we have a strategic partnership with Prove where they're able to, because they're connected to 9 of the top 10 US banks, they're able to help us kind of improve and increase and speed up our connection to these prime banks, where the prime bank is like, oh gosh, I have to develop this whole new system. We work with Prove to do that. And it really is a win-win for all parties. So the tech lift, which used to be a big challenge, that's almost gone away for the prime banks. And that really has been a large hurdle we've really jumped over with Prove. The regulatory environment has changed in the US, and the CFPB published Rule 1033, which doesn't necessarily say second look, but it really incents people to drive inclusivity in the US. And that's what really kind of our connection to Prove is helping us do, where you say, hey, we're really helping banks be more inclusive, and the tech lift isn't hard. So it really is a win-win. Now, it's funny. We've kind of built a better mousetrap with Prove to do this, but really Second Look was around in the late 90s. I mean, HSBC did this with a bunch of Wilmington banks back in the late 90s. So this is not a new concept. There's definitely a precedent for Second Look. We've just really kind of make it a little bit more slick in the execution of it.
Okay. And so is it all digital, or can it be done in a branch, or kind of talk through that?
Great question. So when you're applying, you're going to enter in similar piece of information depending on the bank. So first name, last name, you can enter in cell phone, a bunch of different kind of things you would enter in. And as long as it's entered into the application system of a prime bank, we're good to go. So any channel works. If you think about co-brand, they have purchase path, onboard, in-store. We're able to take all those applications and route them to a subprime bank for consideration. And we really think we'll be able to get a lot more people approved, because in today's regulatory and kind of credit environment, prime banks can't go that well. They're just not able to do it. And the near prime, subprime banks, really because of focus, this is what they do, and that's why they're successful. They're able to go down into the 5s of a FICO score, which is pretty significant and allows more people to kind of get credit and help them kind of move the ball forward on their personal journey.
Okay. And you mentioned international, but today you're just focused on the US, I assume.
We are. So in a prior life, I was Chief Operating Officer of MBNA Spain. So this really works in a deep credit bureau environment, which is the US and some Western European countries. Now, Prove is very, very big in Brazil, which makes a lot of sense. That could be someplace we could go kind of moving forward. But really, we're only focused in the U.S. today. Fingers crossed, we'll be in other places sometime soon.
Okay. So I always ask a question about competition, but it doesn't seem you have a big competitor. Maybe the competition is there isn't another path, right? So, how do you view competition and what you're doing?
Yeah, it's funny. We really view, so there's some experience in the BNPL space that do this today, but it's a little bit different order. Some people have said, hey, some of the synthetic lenders would be competitors. We don't view it as such. We view the market as so big that we will work with synthetic lenders. We'll work with whomever. We don't pick winners. We're a network. We route applications. We want to do the best for the customer. And it's funny. Somebody asked me, hey, you're making the pie bigger. We're actually not making the pie bigger. We're making a different pie. So this really allows for a whole different way for co-brands, businesses, retailers, airlines to look at the market and allow more customers to be included in their loyalty platform.
Okay. Is there an opportunity or a play here for maybe smaller banks, community banks, credit unions even? They're always looking for new, innovative ways to get more customers and keep the customers they have. Is there any opportunity there, do you think?
Yeah, Greg, that's a great question. The answer is absolutely yes. We truly believe if you're a smaller bank, it's hard to lend to these customers, right? If you have somebody with a 570 credit score, you're kind of like, wow, this is a tough one to do. Our position is give it to the experts. And if you're working at Credit One, you are solely focused on near prime, subprime credit card customers. They don't have 57 products, right? They're not doing auto loans and all this kind of stuff. And they win because they're focused. And that's where it really helps the customer. And today, if you're a smaller issuer and you're putting that customer's application in the garbage, that's not good for anybody. Our position is give it to the experts, let that person rehab their credit. And in 18 months, 2 years, guess what? Their FICO will be back over 700 and you'll be able to issue them their own credit card. So it really is a matter of, and I believe this, it's focus and allowing people to do what they do best. And that's kind of how we see the market.
Okay. So I always ask about sort of the future of the industry. So maybe with the lens of what you're doing, what is the future? Where do you see this in maybe 2 to 3 years?
We're hoping to be integrated with a significant number of the prime banks in the US and routing applications to near prime and subprime lenders, and taking a good chunk of those 70 million declines last year and giving them something to help them rebuild their credit. We started this business. So I used to work at MBNA, and over every door was, think of yourself as a customer. So Chris and I started with that premise. And we're saying, how do we help people, and how do we ensure that people are on the right path and staying away from predatory lenders? So our goal is to get as many people back into the credit cycle, rehabbing their credit, and allow them to rehab their credit to a point where they can get a credit card, they can get a car loan, and really kind of drive a much more inclusive environment. Because when you think about it, I mean, the numbers are huge. When you talk about almost 150 million Americans have a non-prime credit score, there's a need there, and the market is significant.
Right. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about you. So maybe tell us about your journey. You've mentioned a few times different companies you've worked at, but maybe kind of lead us through your career and how you got to where you are today.
So as a high school teacher, so it's an easy transition, right? I was an assistant wrestling coach. You go right into MBNA. So I started at MBNA, and it was a fantastic experience. I had a bunch of different marketing jobs. And my last stint at MBNA happened right when Bank of America purchased MBNA. So I was an expat. I ran marketing. Then I was chief operating officer of MBNA Spain. We lived in Madrid. My wife and I actually still have an apartment in Madrid, so we spent a good chunk of time there. And then I went to Barclays for a bit. I had a consulting firm, and I ran into Sherman Financial Group and Credit One Bank, and I worked there for almost a decade. So it was a great place to work. I really enjoyed it. MBNA and Credit One were very, very similar in terms of their corporate culture, the focus they had. I'm still very close to a lot of the people at Credit One. It was a fantastic place to work. And a couple of years ago, I retired and took some time off. That commute from Madrid to Las Vegas would have been really tough. So my wife and I were empty nesters, and I took some time off, and I met Chris Mettler, and we really just hit it off. And we're kind of kicking around a bunch of different ideas. And Chris had this idea for building a network to take a lot of the declines from his existing business, compare credit. He was really struggling with approval rates and saying, hey, I'm spending all this money and I'm not getting approvals. Hey, how do we do this? So I had worked on the American Express Credit One deal where Amex declines are routed to Credit One. And today it's in the market. We kind of kicked it around and said, hey, maybe this is something we'd figure out. So we've been iterating and building the tech, building the team. We have a bunch of engineers working on it. And this is a really tech heavy business. So, kind of I'm Mr. Outside and Chris is Mr. Inside. But, my career has taken a bunch of turns. I've, been in marketing, been in operations, did a bunch of biz devs things. So it feels like this is the right time for the business, and it feels like it's the right time for kind of the market. And, we're super excited about the business, and hopefully we can help people along the way.
Okay. So what are some things you're passionate about? Maybe one work-related passion and one personal passion.
Yeah, it's funny. Work-related, I think I'm pretty good at solving problems. I like kind of taking something that was broke and fixing it. I thoroughly enjoyed, when I was chief operating officer of MBNA Spain, because you had a bunch of different areas, and there was always a fire to put out. So I really liked kind of juggling a bunch of different balls in the office and figuring out, hey, customer service is doing great today, but collections, we got some issues, and how to figure that out. So I really enjoy kind of having multiple things going on at once, a bunch of spinning plates. And personally, I mentioned before I was a high school teacher. I'm actually on the board of trustees of my high school. So it's an inner city boys Catholic school in the middle of Newark, New Jersey. It's a wonderful place. We actually just started 2 years ago with a girls division, and inner city education is something that I think we really got to figure out in the US. And, I like to think that St. Benedict's is a model for that. And we figured out how to really educate young people of Newark and drive them towards success. And it's a crazy place. It's a really fun place. We got to raise 60 cents of every dollar to open the doors, but it's a really exciting place, and it gets kind of my creative juices. And we put a lot of energy, my family and I put a lot of energy behind helping the young people of Newark in that setting. So, it's exciting. We thoroughly enjoy it. And it's something that I don't play golf anymore, but we put a lot of time and energy behind St. Benedict's Prep.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great passion. So if someone came to you, I mean, obviously you've had a long career in financial services. Now you're kind of at the intersection of that and what we might call fintech and payments. And just curious if someone came to you and said, Pat, hey, I'm interested in building a career in the space that you're in, and they're maybe right out of school and they're like, hey, this looks like a great opportunity, a great business to be in, a great market to stay in, the whole payments and fintech space. What would you tell them they need to do to be successful?
It's a great question. I really think with AI and with speed and the velocity of change in lending, I would lean towards data science. I think it's incredibly important. If you can, numbers are numbers. If you can do the math, you're going to be valuable in any organization. And I think we're going to be more and more interested in that. And it's more and more important. So taking any classes that can make you more analytical and successful. And, it's funny, early in my career, I kind of went wide with my experiences. That helped me down the road. But, I see more people kind of leaning in and going deep in one area versus wide. And I kind of think that's where the market's moving. Having a jack of all trades, I feel like is becoming a little bit less important. You've got to understand the business from soup to nuts. I get that. And understanding, hey, the implications of customer service versus collections versus an entire cycle. But, I would say leaning in towards taking as many courses in being analytical and coding and understanding the implications of AI is critically important for any young person. I mean, frankly, that's what I tell my kids. I have kids who are in their young 20s. So that's advice I've readily given out recently.
Right. Makes total sense. Well, we're going to wrap up here in a second. But before we do, I want to make sure you let the audience know where they can learn more about Appressa and more about you. So where would they be able to do that?
So our website is appressa.co. There's no M in there. APPRSSA. My email is pretty simple. It's pat.napoli@appressa.co. We are open for business. We're super excited, and we've been networking pretty well in the market, but we'd love to see if we can help people. Chris Mettler and I are super open to figuring out creative ways to use technology to be more efficient. And with his breadth of businesses, he's in insurance, he's in business lending. We really feel like we can help folks find a creative, healthy, helpful solution for either their business or their personal needs. And it's an exciting time. Greg, I want to thank you for this opportunity. Chris and I talked about it last night. We're super excited about your business, and being the 351st podcast was super exciting for us. I just really wanted to say thank you to you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate you being on. Well, before we hit stop here, is there anything else you'd like to add before we go ahead and wrap up?
No, I just want to say thank you very much. We're excited. We think we're going to have some really positive news over the next quarter of business in terms of signing prime banks. And really that's where the volume is. And we think kind of hopefully that first prime bank will push the dominoes over for this business and we can get rolling. And a lot of co-brands rely a lot on their loyalty programs. And we really feel like that's where the market's going to be made first. And we're just hopeful and really excited about this opportunity moving forward.
Great. Well, Pat, thank you so much for being on the show today. I know your time's very valuable, so I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Greg. Have a great day.
You too. And to all you listeners out there, I thank you for your time as well. And until the next story.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Leaders in Payments podcast. Make sure you visit our website at leadersinpayments.com, where you can subscribe to the show and where you'll find our show notes. If you enjoyed listening, please share on your social channels as well.